I think it is almost a trendy thing to have a brown baby.
Half caste I don't really mind because I've been called that a few times throughout my life.
I remember being picked on when I was really young.
I just remember looking around the classroom and everyone was white, and I just remember looking at my hands like, how come I'm different?
Identity is important to us all. It's at the root of a person's sense of individuality and helps them to find their place in society. But when your identity is a mixture of two sometimes very different heritages, races or cultures, how easy is it to identify with who you are? I'm Amy Bramwell. I'm 22 and I'm mixed race. My mother is Black British. She moved from Jamaica to the UK when she was 4. My father is white British. He was born in Grimsby in Lincolnshire. I grew up in Ipswich and went to a very culturally diverse primary school. I never questioned my race until I was 10, when I changed to a school where the majority of pupils were white. A girl came up to me at break time and asked, "How does it feel to be black?" Never really thinking about the colour of my skin before, I replied coyly, "I don't know." At that point I realised I was different from her and most of the other kids around me. Since then, I've been aware of my race every day. Whether I'm with my friends, who happen to be predominantly white, or my family, who are mostly black, I feel a sense of exclusion. I want to find out if other young people of dual heritage feel the same growing up, and whether this sense of not fitting in has affected their self-esteem as a mixed-race person.
Excuse me. Standing on one leg, I'm half caste. Explain yourself. What do you mean? When you say half caste, you mean when Picasso mixed red and green is a half caste canvas? Explain yourself. What do you mean when you say half caste?
Half caste, best of both, Milky Way and coloured. A few of the derogatory terms I've heard people use to describe me. Mixed race, the term I've used to describe myself my whole life, isn't even PC anymore. Dual heritage now being the correct term. But why are people so bothered? I'm not dark enough to be called black, and not pale enough to be labelled white, which leaves me being an awkward and difficult in-betweener. Society is forcing us mixed-race people to choose a side.
My hair was different, so that didn't fit in with the black girls, and quite often that I actually got sort of teased about that. And my features kind of odd to most people's. You know, like I'd have bigger lips, but I've got a smaller nose, and I was conscious of that. I did try to talk black. I must have sounded like a rope to it, but I did try and fit in. Some
people will get a little bit confused by it because some people they'll think that they're fully black, so they'll just like get involved with all the black people at their school, and then they'll get into sorts of trouble and stuff like that. And then like other people will just get involved with like the white side of their culture, and then just kind of depends on who you brought up around, I suppose.
I mean, I think that it's important to be aware that there's a need to do it. I mean, I think if you start from the point of thinking that, oh, it's going to be okay, you know, all kids need is love, then, you know, you're halfway to failing.
My mum Jeanette. After being a social worker for 10 years and seeing the negative impacts poor parenting can have on a child, she has strong beliefs on the importance of understanding the problems mixed-race children face.
I think you have to initially acknowledge that children of mixed heritage are going to come up against challenges. And so it's actually trying to think about what those challenges can be, and come up with strategies for helping your child to sort of overcome them.
I've been lucky enough to be presented with a very strong and positive sense of my black culture.
As a black woman living in Britain who was born in the Caribbean, you know, I'm aware that, you know, my culture has been totally assimilated. The two cultures, you know, they're not as separate as we would like to make them appear. But when we're actually trying to sort of make sure that children are aware and comfortable, we have to actually kind of make them look almost diametrically opposed at times, totally different, so that they can grasp it. But then, as they grow and as they develop, they themselves are aware that, it's a mixture of everything.
My dad, Alan, discusses how essential it is to be open when you're part of a multiracial household.
I think as a white person bringing up a mixed-race child, I think it's important that you are open to influences yourself and be willing to learn and to recognise the importance of how you can support that child to develop a positive knowledge and awareness of both cultures.
Both my parents call me and my sister black, with me being the only one to refer to myself as mixed race. I've begun to wonder if the mixed race identity isn't so much about how I see myself, but how society sees me. Trust the late and great king of pop, Michael Jackson, to put it so simply. He sang that race shouldn't be an issue, and that it doesn't matter what colour you are. With public figures like Madonna, Angelina Jolie and Sandra Bullock adopting ethnic minority babies, it appears we're all living in a day and age where skin colour is no longer an obstacle. But are these adoptions in the best interest of the children? Can being raised by white parents cause long-term damage to an ethnic minority child's identity?
I'm Tony Callery and I'm the County Adoption Team Manager for Nottinghamshire County Council. Every now and again when you get new politicians, new government, this is an easy thing for them to draw attention to, that their black children are waiting, so we should place them with white families. The truth is that if you look at it percentage-wise, when we looked at it some 4 years ago, you get as many black families coming forward as white families. The difficulty is that there's more black children in care. If a white family adopt a black child and they live in a white area, well then what you do is you isolate that child from any cultural input at all. So as they grow up, they don't know how to operate within their communities.
The mixed race ethnic group is the fastest growing in the UK and is predicted to be the largest by 2020. What's the reason for this increase? Ruth Waterhouse, sociology lecturer at Stafford University, says multiculturalism is a possible factor.
I guess there's always been, for a very long time, there's been some element of multiculturalism within Britain, although we would not have called it that in the past. People from different societies and cultures have come into Britain over many, many centuries. There's a centuries-long history there. But clearly, it's, if you're thinking about the post-Second World War period, then that was a period where you had migration from Commonwealth countries and so on. That was actually encouraged by the British state at that time. So you had people coming from the Caribbean, you had people coming from India, and so on. And they've come because of pull pressures from Britain and also push pressures from their place of origin. Many came in not expecting to settle, but did settle. They had their children here, and those children have grown up with an understanding that they're living in a society that is characterised by a lot of diversity, ethnic diversity. And I think there's also been perhaps a change amongst certain groups, certain aspects of society to see this as a positive thing, to see interaction between cultures and intermarriage between cultures as a not just a problem, but as a positive aspect of living in a diverse society. Because I don't think it's always a question of it being problematic. I think there are also positive things that people can gain within that kind of situation as well.
Britain has one of the highest rates of interracial relationships in the Western world. Most of my family members are with people who are different colours to them, making my family unit diverse, culturally rich and interesting.
Mixed race. I don't like half caste. I just don't like the term half of anything. She's twice as much.
This is my cousin Sabrina. She's black British and has a beautiful mixed race baby called Esme. Sabrina thought a lot about having a baby of dual heritage while she was pregnant. When I was growing up, my mum, being black, knew how to properly care for my mixed race skin and hair. I asked Sabrina if she felt Esme had an advantage having a mum who also knew about these things.
Yeah, I do, to be frank. I do think so. But in some ways it is different because she's not black, so her hair is never going to be exactly as my hair would have been. It's not pure afro, but the fact that it's got a bit of afro in it means that I do know how to cope with it. But that's not to say that white mothers don't know how to cope with their children's hair. I think the ones that want to find out, you know, and they will talk to black ladies or their black husbands or partners and find out what they need to do with the hair. But it's only a small thing, really. It's cosmetic, isn't it? It's not like if I didn't know what to do with her hair, that her hair would be horrible and it would all drop off. It just perhaps wouldn't look at its best all the time. But, you know, my hair doesn't look at its best all the time, so I don't really suppose it really makes that much difference.
I think ever since I've been with Sabrina and knew that I was going to be with her for a while, we've discussed kids.
For a while? Not forever, then?
Yeah, but not from the moment I saw you.
Sorry to interrupt.
This is Mark. He's white British and Esme's dad. I wanted to know if he and Sabrina had discussed having a mixed race baby and whether he had a culturally diverse upbringing.
I think we're quite, you know, we have a fairly good relationship in as much as we communicate and we talk about everything and everything. Yeah, we discussed it in length. I come from a fairly small town and there's mostly white people and that was it. But the one thing I felt, even being a white person and growing up in a white place, is that I didn't like the people that I was growing up with. You know, my friends were my friends, but I always felt an uncomfortableness, like I wanted to get out.
Being mixed race is not something I think about all the time, yet how people behave towards me often is. When I was growing up, feeling different was the worst feeling in the world. Now, as a young woman, I understand that it's what makes me who I am. It's not about me or any other mixed race person having to choose a black or white side, but the luxury of being both. For me, my dual heritage is one of the things I'm most proud of.